I want to pull up this story from Fox News. A lot of people were talking about this. The video of Greta Thunberg getting arrested, sending Twitter into a frenzy. Time for many of us to stand up. And you got this clip where she's being carried away with a smile on her face. And then I don't know if we do have it here. People are saying it's staged because you can see her laughing and smiling with some guy as the cops are just standing there with her. And then they eventually just walk away and she's not being carried. I don't think it's staged. I don't. The cops were probably told, okay, get the protesters out of here. I think it was staged insofar as almost all nonviolent civil disobedience is staged, as in protesters will call the police and say, hey, we're going to go here, we're going to protest, just so you know. Then the cops say, okay, we're going to come arrest you, and say, okay. And then you get press. But here's the real story. The real story is that Greta Thunberg's friends attacked a bunch of journalists. Look at this from Andy No. At the autonomous zone in Lützerath, Germany, militant leftists and Antifa and climate extremists surrounded and attacked journalists. These are Greta Thunberg's friends, huh? This is something I think people need to bring up because I'm not playing these games. We've talked about the banality of evil. If Greta Thunberg is going to be associating with these people, if she's going to be organizing protests and inviting these people, and if she will not call this out, then she is complicit and she supports it. Period.
I remember playing eco-terrorism in Civilization 2. It was my first exposure as a young man to eco-terrorism. And I was like, oh, these people are protected. Civ 2, you could create eco-terrorist character, or it might have been the expansion to Civ 2.
It had to be an expansion.
Yeah, and you could create a character that was an eco-terrorist that could go, and I was like, oh, they're defending the planet, but they're called terrorists. These are good units. I want eco-terrorists in my army because they're valuable. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is all, why do they call them terrorists if they're protecting the earth? But I think Greta is willing to use violence or associate with people using violence because she thinks it's that drastic.
Look at the flag.
You see that flag right there?
That's the flag of violent leftist violence.
Yeah.
And I mean, hey, there are times and
Across the
places
world.
that people have been destroying things to the point where you have to use violence to stop them from destroying it. But I don't think the global ecosystem is in that state right now.
I'm not going to make a moral judgment on the protests. I am going to make a fact statement. Greta Thunberg's group violently attacked journalists.
Is it confirmed that they're all in the same group? Were they just all there kind of disparately?
What does that even mean?
Like they were all there of their own volition, didn't know each other, but some people were violent, some other people there being
There's one
lumped
group
in.
Protesting climate stuff.
Well, let's watch the video. I didn't see the attack.
What game I'm not going to play is that these leftists have long done this, where they quote unquote respect a diversity of tactics, and then they will all feign ignorance and reject responsibility for what they organize, which is violent attacks on journalists. It happens all the time. And then you'll get an organization and it'll be called Save the Planet. And then when Antifa shows up and gets violent, they go, oh, well, they're not with us. Yes, they are. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you'd have kicked them out. Otherwise, when that one crazy dude showed up in Portland and started doing the Nazi salute or whatever, they threw him out. And then all the woke media ran pictures claiming he was at their event. It's like, yeah, getting kicked out. Mm-hmm. They said, get the F out. They won't kick these people out. They want them there to respect their diversity of tactics.
It concerns me, man. Greenpeace, they would go, sink boats and blow up oil tankers.
I don't think Greenpeace ever did that.
They destroy bridges?
They're pacifists. I'm pretty sure.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure.
I've seen eco-terrorists.
What happened with Greenpeace? Sea Shepherds are the ones that actually go and fight.
Sea Shepherds is the one you're thinking of.
Greenpeace. Yeah. They had the French government bombed one of their boats or something like that.
They blew it up and sank.
Now, I'm not saying Greenpeace are good dudes. They do not, they will get like water guns and they'll climb onto boats and they'll wave flags and do banner drops. Mm-hmm. But I'm pretty sure Greenpeace isn't going around bombing anybody or anything like that.
Sea Shepherds attacked at sea, vessels attacked. So these guys are known as
there's
those are pirates.
Yeah.
But pirates for Earth, for planet Earth.
Well, there's like a whole South Park
pirates
episode about it.
I did say but pirates for planet Earth.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I still didn't see the attack because I see a lot of social media posts that come up being like, man, attacks, dude, and thing. And I'm like, what did he do? He got up in his face and yelled at him. That's not an attack.
Well, if you saw, they threw down the smartphone that they were using to record. They kicked him in this video,
They're kind of mild harassment stuff. That's one thing I give Antifa a little credit for is that they don't go too overboard. They just kind of pepper spray and beat you up a little bit. They don't actually shoot you or stab you.
Hey, Ian. You'll see the attack. It's the person orange
dude with the the dude in the orange is getting attacked.
See that camera going on the ground,
throwing the gear,
kicking the camera.
It's out of what happened before to the guy?
Oh, come on, dude.
Well, I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it.
You know what? The one thing I can say is if I was going to have any sympathy for Antifa, it's because we all are sick and tired of journalists. Because like they're just like they lie for corporations, they lie for advertisers.
Yeah.
And if it's not them, it's their bosses who do it. So it's just like, I get why Antifa's mad. They hate journalists because journalists lie all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm opposed to violence. So like, if Greta Thunberg wants to go to some protest and associate with this, then I'm going to call it like I see it. That's her group. I'm not saying she organized that group. I'm saying she's with them.
So you think she has a responsibility to speak out against this right now?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Like when that dude showed up in Portland, I forgot the guy's name, and he started yelling the N-word. They said, "Get the out of here." Like, dude, it's tough especially on the right, because the media will lie anyway. Mm-hmm. And they will protect the left. Right now, I assure you, Media Matters is like writing something up where they're like, Tim Pool lies and claims Greta Thunberg is violent or something, and that's the challenge. But I'm not going to play any games. If you are like, hey, everybody, meet me here, and then a bunch of violent lunatics attack journalists, and then you're like, don't look at me.
Yeah.
Ian, you put yourself in the reporter's shoes, right? You're there to try to report. Say you're coming from a good place. You're just trying to cover what's going on here because the corporate media is very sympathetic to what's happening here. Al Gore is promoting Greta Thunberg today, right? So you're there covering what's going on, and then you got some people coming up. You don't know who they are. You don't know if they have weapons. Start kicking you, slapping your camera, throwing you down, saying, get out of here, assaulting you, slapping you, punching you. And whenever you put your hands on somebody, again, you shouldn't do that. I covered a lot of different protests, faced a lot of different insane situations. I got assaulted. I got jumped a couple times. I got beat up a couple times. But the best thing that I saw was in Hong Kong, where, of course, people there were protesting against the Chinese government. The Chinese government was using fake press as a way to get photos and videos of protesters and then arrest them and ship them away forever. What did the Hong Kong protesters do? They didn't assault journalists. They didn't beat them up, but they figured out ways to kind of do their thing to, of course, have their face covered, but also use umbrellas in a way that prevented any kind of conflict or escalations when they were changing into black bloc, since they were using black bloc tactics. They used it in a way to not force or hurt anyone, but obfuscate their identity, because there was a real threat for the Chinese government coming in and disappearing people. And they did it in a way that we didn't need any of this nonsense, any of this kind of threat or assault of journalists, which we should always try to avoid and speak out against.
Let's not lose sight of the irony of a flag standing for anti-fascism beating up journalists for covering their...
Well, I love that there's a meme where it's like a leftist yelling, just because the Nazis called themselves socialists doesn't mean they're socialists, and then holding the Antifa flag and be like, of course we're anti-fascists. It's in our name.
Yeah.
Good. I don't take your word for it.
When you said the Hong Kong rebellion, what would you even call that? An uprising, a resistance?
Well, the Chinese state was coming in and not keeping their promise that they had with the UK government, that they were going to transition Hong Kong to China in a very slow way. The Chinese government did it in a very fast way and was, of course, also destroying a lot of key institutions in Hong Kong and a lot of the larger apparatuses and institutions that provided a lot of people liberty. They were getting rid of that. People protested, and then there was a violent crackdown on the protests. And it was just insane covering that situation, because it was truly so much different than covering a lot of the Western protests that I've seen in Greece or in Paris or even inside of the United States, where a lot of the things were totally opposite each other.
I heard that they were putting crazy chemicals in like fire hoses with like blue ink and pepper, and they would spray it and stick on your skin.
Yeah, so
it sticks on your skin for a while.
And it makes you blue, so they know who's
I got
who.
hit with it a little bit,
exactly.
and I felt that stink for a very long time. Some people were covered in it. I just got hit with it a little bit, just covering the protest there. I was there for some of the most violent, most insane interactions, where there was, just people getting seriously hurt and dying on the streets.
These American and European Antifa are spoiled little brats.
Yeah.
Go to Turkey, go to Brazil. It was an experience when I was in Brazil, because I've been, Luke and I have both been pepper sprayed and tear gassed ad nauseum, literally, throughout the United States. And it's like, you get gas, it sucks, you cough, whatever. You get pepper spray. When you're taking a shower later, it burns. When I was in Brazil, I was like, oh, they're tear gassing everybody. And then as soon as the gas hit me, like my nose and eyes just like mucus tears. It was like 10 times more powerful.
Yeah.
And it was just like your nose was just spraying mucus. I took my sock off and jammed it in my mouth to be able to keep breathing. And I was like, damn, it was bad.
Wow.
Yeah, in the United States, they use like the lowest tier irritant. And it's just like,
Other countries don't give a damn.
The reason
They
I
use
brought it up,
heavy stuff.
you said
in
that-
Israel, especially in Gaza, they use like some very
like
serious
CS
stuff.
gas.
Not just CS gas, but also there's like a skunk gun as well. They use some next level stuff there, which is just crazy.
It concerns me that it's being tested on the rioters, or what would you call them, protesters. But okay, so you said they got black bloc. They were dressing in black bloc in Hong Kong. Do you think that was just? Were they violent? Black bloc violence?
Depends on the circumstance and situation. There was a couple instances where they stormed a government building. They stormed Parliament. There was also a couple instances where people were getting assaulted and beat up, but not as much as, of course, a lot of the Western protests. So there was that as well.
Do you think they were justified?
I don't think so. I think anytime you try to use force and violence against someone else to enforce your ideas, you're losing and you're in the wrong.
The American Revolution.
Well, that's a totally different thing. That wasn't a protest, right?
Yeah, it started off as a protest in Boston Harbor.
But you have the right to defend
No, hold on. The American Revolutionary period was 20 years. It wasn't just a protest in Boston Harbor. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on.
I know. Yeah.
There was the Boston Massacre.
Yeah.
People were being killed. Soldiers were barging into people's homes and taking people's food and sleeping there. And then the Founding Fathers wrote sternly worded letters for years to the king, being like, yo, please stop. Please
you
stop,
could argue that
please
the
stop.
British were the aggressors in that.
And the British were stopping U.S. vessels on the sea, on the high seas, kidnapping people and forcing them into servitude of the crown.
So they were forced to fight, you could argue, but were they justified in their fight?
And so then,
sometimes
even after that, the U.S. is like, okay, we're writing this letter to the king. I'm done with this. And it's like, bro, they've been kidnapping people from boats, and you're writing a letter. So like, it was pretty measured. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.